I'd like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on which we are gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee meeting on the 22nd of June 2022. I declare the meeting open at 1:30 p.m. I'd like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcasted and audio recorded. Councillors, I note that the committee chairperson, Councillor Jeremiah, is absent from today's meeting due to his attendance at the 2022 National General Assembly as Logan City Council's representative to the Australian Local Government Association. As the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee does not have an appointed deputy chairperson, one must be nominated. A motion is now on the screen to appoint myself as acting chairperson for the duration of today's meeting. So Councillor Bradley's moved this motion. And is there a seconder? Councillor Stemp has seconded the motion. I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Okay. I note that Councillor Jeremiah is a leave of absence for today's meeting due to his attendance at the 2022 National General Assembly as Logan City Council's representative to the Australian Local Government Association. I also note that Councillor Bannon and Wilcox have submitted a leave of absence due to illness. Do any councillors have a leave of absence to declare? Okay, there being no others, is there a mover for the motion as displayed on the screen? Yep, Councillor Stemp has moved the motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bradley has seconded. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. I now refer to item 4.1. Can the acting Sport, Leisure and Facilities Manager, Mr. Ben O'Brien, please enter the discussions? Before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? There being none, I now refer to Mr. O'Brien to open public discussion. Mr. O'Brien, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, councillors. Thank you for allowing or requesting this report to come to this committee. This report explores Council's current use of prefabricated buildings and the key considerations that make this type of a building situationally advantageous to Council. The report further explores the value proposition for both prefabricated and modular builds, as well as traditional construction building. Where a standardised facility with a shorter useful life is going to be deemed fit for purpose, then prefabricated buildings typically do result in shorter design times, shorter construction time frames, by being able to progress the preliminary site works concurrently, and then there can be cost efficiencies through time savings. So there's definitely a place for prefabricated and modular builds. However, where there is design flexibility is needed, there are significant site constraints, architectural finishes, and significant site infrastructure works, then traditional construction still represents an advantage to Council as well, and the disparity between the two becomes significantly less. The attachment to the report also captures in significantly more detail the benefits and disbenefits of prefabricated construction methodology as we understand it at this time. It is noted that prefabricated buildings are growing in popularity, and there continues to be advancement specifically in the sporting and community facility sector. However, there is insufficient data at this time to determine the actual and true asset lifecycle costs and longer term maintenance costs to add to this conversation. Council, in my opinion, should continue to consider both prefabricated and traditional building methodologies for future projects and select the option that is going to be most advantageous to Council over the full life of the asset, including site specifications and the functional need. Happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll now open the floor for councillors for discussion. Are there any questions? Any comments? That's fine. Okay, so...
Yeah, I just wanted on record that on page 6 of the report refers to Underwood Park, the massive project that 66 pieces of modular buildings put in place. I do recall prior to it being constructed, etc., the concept sounded fine to me, but in my opinion, the end result has had some issues, and there still are some issues in my opinion. I probably, if I had my way, and obviously there was a period of time when I didn't have my way, I wasn't during administration. If I had my way again, I probably wouldn't have supported that personally, but in terms of, I suppose, what the benefit to the community, there's a lot more benefit in terms of space for the community. So there are definitely advantages, but would I support it again? Probably not. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Are there any other questions? So yeah, I'd like to thank the manager and his team for the report. They did write a lot of comprehensive items in there. So yeah, I quite enjoyed reading it, and yeah, it doesn't necessarily answer the question which one's better or not fully, but as time goes on, we'll figure out what the best course of action is, I suppose, in terms of building style. All right. So now there's no more questions. Yep. So is there a mover for the motion as displayed on the screen? Councillor Bradley's moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Stemp has seconded the motion. So do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. That marks the end of the Acting Sports, Leisure and Facilities Manager's reports. Is there any general business? There being none, I'll now move to the next item. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. I now refer to item 5.1. Can the Administration Manager, Ms. Kay Sullivan, please enter the discussions? Before we open the discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? There being none, I now refer to Ms. Sullivan to open public discussions. Do I keep stuffing it? Ms. Sullivan, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. Report 5.1, excuse me, relates to procuring best value outcomes. I will take the report as read, but also just wanted to highlight on page 18 under our spend profile, I was really pleased to see that while Council has spent approximately $370 million in the 2021-22 financial year to date, 75% of this spend was entered under an existing contract that had been established through an open competitive tender process. So from a value perspective, that's a good statistic for Council at this point in time. Instead of going through the report, given the amount of topics that it covers, what I've prepared is a PowerPoint presentation, so I'd be happy to take you through that.
Do you want to ask your question first? Yeah. All right, so Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the Chair. Just in relation to what you just said about the 75%, I'm just curious how many of those were local?
I will have to take that question on notice. I'm sorry, Councillor Bradley, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Yep.
So no more questions. All right, we can go with the PowerPoint. Yep, thanks.
Councillors, as you would be aware, through moving to our strategic contracting principles, we were able to change our procurement thresholds. And so our current system that we have in place is up to $50,000 we can source through one written quote. And of course, it's always our preference that we go local in the first instance, and between 50 and 500,000, 3 written quotes there as well. And again, where possible, we always source locally. Very difficult to read, I'm very sorry about that, but what I wanted to share here is our clearly documented process on how we retain or request quotes. Again, council sources a minimum of 3 quotes through a local business in the first instance. And what I'm pleased about with regard to this particular process is it was co-created with our customers and other parts of the business. So there's a very high level of engagement with this particular process. When we do our quotes, we use a platform called Vendor Panel. It's our procurement platform, and there's 2 key areas of functionality there. The first is inviting quotes from a council or local buy pre-qualified supplier arrangement, which has been established through that open tender process. And the second part of Vendor Panel is where there's an existing contract, or where an existing contract or exception does not exist, we can invite our registered suppliers to quote for different goods or services that we need them to provide. Obviously, going back to having a platform such as this, from a probity perspective and from a quality assurance perspective, every step is captured and documented. It's becoming more and more apparent, and it's quite a logical step as well. But our specifications and getting our specifications correct is absolutely critical to making sure that we get the goods or services that we're looking for. This is again where the really great relationships between procurement and other branches of council come to the fore, because nobody knows their business better than our customers, and so we rely on the subject matter expertise of those individual businesses to help inform the specifications. Obviously, we can put the procurement practices around that, but we really rely heavily on individual businesses to be able to tell us what they need. I guess the flip side of making sure that you have the right specifications with the right level of detail is we don't want to be over-designing the specifications. We don't want to be providing specs to prospective suppliers that are so tight that it stifles innovation or innovative type outcomes. So getting the balance there is really, really important. Understanding the market, and again, this is a really important step from a risk mitigation strategy. So as we've matured our procurement processes, this has been something that has added a significant amount of value to our procurement practices for council. So market intelligence can empower procurement to think more strategically and evaluate cost and value opportunities. With quality market intelligence, procurement can build stronger positions in negotiations, managing risk and making better informed sourcing decisions around our category spend. We also use tools such as market pricing, supplier positioning, emerging and industry trends, SWOT analysis, and what's called a pestle analysis as well, where when you're looking at different suppliers or different positions in the market, you take into account political, economic, social, technology, legal and environmental considerations as well. So we've very much moved, particularly in the last 3 years, from what I would consider foundational procurement, where we made sure that from a probity perspective and from a compliance perspective, we were meeting those requirements, very much moved to that greater level of maturity where we're really doing in-depth analysis of the industries and getting those better value outcomes. This will also set us up, and the process that we've followed to date as well, very much setting us up to move a very natural progression to category management as well, which is that next level of maturity for procurement. Obviously, value for money is a key consideration as well. And I'll just move to best value, for which value for money is a consideration. So always when we talk about best value, it's a combination of non-cost and cost factors. So we look at the whole of life costs, technical capability, capacity, quality, financial sustainability, health and safety are always considerations for any goods or services that we procure, and we really want to do business with those suppliers that provide us with that best value concept. I'll just move quickly through. Included in your report was some case studies, and we included those because we had received some questions around value for money through procurement that Council does. The first case study, just very quickly, is looking at the installation of bins in Flagstone Adventure Park. And again, the reason that I spent some time talking about our specifications is the difference between the quote that one of our councillors received and the quote that Council received. There was a difference in specifications there, hence the difference in the cost. So Council requested a total of 4 bins and 2 concrete slabs, and again, the competitive quote that was requested via a third party only included 2 bins and 1 concrete slab. So I was pleased to see specifications we can work on. That's just about being clear and providing that clarity to our suppliers. Very pleased to see that in this particular instance, the suppliers that the Council was utilising were able to deliver value for money there. The next case study, very quickly, that we just did an investigation into as well, was around a swing set at a toddlers playground. The differential in cost here was quite significant. So our initial, or our cost for this entire project was around the $50,000 mark, and I'd received advice that one of our councillors was able to get this project delivered for $2,500. Incredible price difference there. When we looked at like-for-like comparison, again, it came back to specifications. So our quote that we had received was for the entire project, which included a swing set, it included site establishment, the supply and installation of equipment, landscaping, ground surfacing. We went for a soft fall finish there, labour, etc. The $2,500 was a really competitive quote just for the swing set, not for the entire project there. So again, that like-for-like comparison is really important. And then just we've discussed many times within Council the printing of our newsletters and our Logan magazine, and the outcome of looking into that in preparation for this report here is my assessment is that there are different areas across Council that have a different level of procurement knowledge. Some areas do it frequently, some do not. This particular area did not frequently need to engage from a procurement perspective. So I think there were some questions that could have been asked that were not asked that would have got us a different outcome. So where staff don't have a good understanding of procurement or contracting practices, the procurement team are paying particular attention to building that procurement knowledge within those individual branches. And most certainly the commentary that we're using is, please, if you're unsure or you don't do this frequently, engage with procurement early, and we're more than happy to assist. The last part just to touch on, and I'm very excited about what our Procurement Digital Hub will do for Council. This is a next generation procurement digital hub that's been developed in consultation with ARC Blue. What it does is brings together procurement tools, strategies, documents, processes, learnings, analytics into one system. So it allows us to do spend analytics, economic impacts. It has collaboration tools, knowledge-based articles, and it also allows us to benchmark ourselves against other similar organisations as well. It allows us to cut the data in any number of ways around our local spend, where we're procuring under contract, what our spend is with different suppliers. There's just pages and pages, literally, of different ways that we can cut the data there. What that will allow us to do is identify savings and efficiency gains, obviously enable us to make better informed decisions. It demonstrates value, communicates performance to our customers, highlights opportunities for business improvements, and identifies social and local development opportunities. It'll also allow us from a compliance perspective to monitor and audit our compliance with contracts and policies there. Very pleased as well. Initially, we only had a smaller number of licences, but we've been able to negotiate 30 licences for council there at no additional cost. So that will allow managers, directors to be able to cut data and look at data any number of ways for their individual areas as well. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Sullivan. I'll now open the floor to councillors for discussion. So, Councillor Bradley.
Yeah, I'm just curious, thank you through the chair, I'm just curious, this last page, number 13 that is up on the board, Ms Sullivan, is this in the public domain or is this behind the scenes information?
It's behind.
Did that work?
Thank you, through the chair. It is behind the scenes information. What we do make public is obviously our local spend, our spend by category, but when we're talking about individual suppliers, that contractual information is kept confidential within council.
Thank you, and I believe we have to table this if there's no other question.
Councillor Stamp has a question.
Through the chair, thank you. I guess the question was, in terms of the environmental side, do any of these stats sort of pick up on, I don't know, how we're tracking with carbon and how these people that were actually, contractors were actually using their environmental side of things, just some understanding of, is there a way of capturing that information through that as well?
Thank you, through the chair. Not using this tool specifically, what we do with our individual contracts is look at environmental sustainability as a criteria that we assess goods or services by. But not only the environmental sustainability, it relates to supply chains, but also the types of products now that we are sourcing as well. So we capture that individually and amalgamate it, but I don't have it documented such as this. Yep.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that was being documented somewhere because that's so important, obviously. So,
absolutely,
yeah,
agreed. Yep.
So, are there any more questions? No? All right. So, as a PowerPoint has been presented to the meeting, we'll be required to table the document. Is there a mover for the motion to table the document to the meeting? Okay, so Councillor Bradley has moved this, and as this is a procedural motion, we do not require a seconder. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No? I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so I now refer to the report's motion. Is there a mover for the motion displayed on the screen? So Councillor Stamp has moved the motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bradley has seconded the motion. Are there any councillors that wish to speak to the motion? No? I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried unanimously. So that marks the end of the Administration Manager's report. Is there any general business? No? There being none, I'll now move to the next item. Thank you, Ms Sullivan. So that completes our agenda for today. I declare the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee meeting of the 22nd of June 2022 concluded at 1:55 p.m. Thank you.